Welcome everybody, I'm Andrea Miller and I'm a registered dietitian and certified diabetes educator. And today we're not at the hospital, we are at the community garden located on William Street here in Bryan, Ohio. And I have a special guest with me today. She's actually been a guest before. I have Jenny McCarnes with me. She's the president of the community garden. And she's gonna give us a little update on the garden. It's been 2 years, I think almost exactly. Was it in August that we did that first episode?
Yes, it was, yeah.
So exactly 2 years ago, she was on the show and we were trying to promote the community garden, getting some people interested in it. And it was successful getting some people interested because we actually have one of the interested individuals here today that is now involved, and she's the secretary, you said?
Right.
Kathy Cooley, so you'll get to meet her in a couple minutes. But we thought we'd give you an update today on where the community garden has gone. Because it's, as you can see, it was kind of just a vision in that first episode. And now we are in an actual garden.
Right, for sure.
So, and this is just one of the gardens. We have one at Kunkel.
Right, one in Kunkel that we just got going this year. And then we're looking at hopefully having one in Eden. We're still getting how much interest there is in that area before we can start a garden. So we're in that beginning stage like we were for here.
Yeah. Well, I have no doubt that 2 years from now you're going to have one in Eden and probably a couple more in other locations.
We hope so.
Seem to be growing.
Yeah, that's our goal, is to help Williams County grow.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So
how many beds do you have out here? I could go through and count, but you probably know.
We have 20 beds, and we have 3 of them we use for demonstration. All the rest are rented, I guess you say. We charge $10 a bed to pay for our water, and then the people are free to plant just about whatever they like, as long as it's not a perennial. And we're looking at the future, maybe making some space where we can put in some perennials like some rhubarb or asparagus that everybody can share. But right now it's limited to annuals. And last year we even extended the season out here. We planted some things in August and harvested in November.
Wow.
And it was a fun experience for everybody to see that was possible.
Right. Right, the growing season isn't just June, July, and August.
Exactly.
You can grow some things later on, or even later in the season.
And this year we started pretty early, so I was pleased. It all depends on Mother Nature. And because we have all raised beds, we were able to get things in when our poor farmers weren't this year.
Right.
The rain didn't bother us so much.
They do tend to drain a little bit better than a garden that's in the ground.
Yep. So. Yeah, and they warm up a little faster too.
Sure.
So it's been wonderful.
Absolutely. And $10, that's really reasonable for somebody to come out here and garden.
We figure, and this year I think we're going to be really lucky that we haven't had to use water quite as much because Mother Nature has blessed us with lots of rain. So that's been a great thing.
It's been a good year for gardening. And you can tell because everything is just so lush.
Exactly.
Everything looks beautiful.
Thank you.
So maybe you could give us a little tour of the gardens, and we can start over here with some of the demonstration gardens.
Okay. Well, in this site, we wanted to show a little bit of trellising methods, and one of them with the tomatoes is that most people don't know that you don't need a lot of leaves with tomatoes, and you can take off all the bottom leaves and then just let them go up. And then we have, of course, our huge cabbage there ready to harvest.
Yeah, those look great.
And we have some parsley here that's still going. And these are garlic that we planted last November, and they're the hardneck kind of garlic. And then they grow and they're ready to harvest as well. So we'll be digging those out and drying them.
And you also have, so not only the tomatoes on the trellis, but you also have an eggplant and then the cucumbers as
and
well.
We've already harvested some of those.
And a pepper.
Right, and some peppers,
So I didn't realize that the peppers and the eggplant like to trellis.
Well, they don't send up any little, tendrils much, but you can help them stay sturdy with the wind.
They like that support.
They like that support, right.
Great.
Yep. And then the little clips work really well.
Yeah, and there's a nice sturdy frame to support. So.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, it looks great.
Now this one is one of our gardeners, Mr. Smith, and he lives here in the apartments. And his goal, he was with us last year, and he said, "Oh, I want the same plots again this year." And his goal is to make a salsa garden. So he's got all of his tomatoes, and then he's got his peppers and his onions. So
those are aromas, which
and some
really
of them are
well for
aromas,
the
and some of
salsa.
them are, I'm not sure what else, but he's got, wow, quite an abundance of tomatoes.
They're just loaded.
Yeah, and
they're not even that big. They're just they're just loaded with the tomatoes.
Yeah, and he told me he learned from last year when he didn't trellis and he planted them too close together, even though he had the tomato cages, they all fell over. And he was really upset because he lost a lot of his fruit. But he tried the trellising method. He told me he's really excited. It seems to be working well for him.
And his peppers look really good too. You can see they're loaded, loaded with peppers.
Yep, I don't see on
there.
that one, but there's a lot of that one. Yep.
So the people that are gardening out here,
Oh,
they're successful in gardening because they have a little bit of extra support too, a little bit of education from the community garden to help them along in their journey.
Yep, and they're free to ask questions. Like I recommended people mulch with the hot weather that we had, and we used leaf mulch where we could. And he thought it was a great idea. Then he didn't have to water so much.
And that'll decompose and add nutrients then to the soil.
Correct. It will. So he's well on his way to reaching his goal of making that salsa.
Jalapenos over here, and again they're loaded with peppers.
He's got a lot. Yeah. Yep.
And some basil.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of tomatoes out here. We're just surrounded by tomatoes.
Tomatoes are the most
and
popular.
peppers.
Yep. We have an eggplant, and this is called California weave. It's another method of trellising. And you just weave it in and out on either side of the whatever you're trying to trellis.
So there are a lot of creative ways that you can trellis that might be less expensive than, even the frames might be expensive.
Yeah. You're only limited to how high your pole is here.
That's right.
We had higher poles.
That's right.
Stakes, I guess I should call them. But yeah.
And they all look like they're doing well. These look like they're more like grape tomatoes.
Yeah, I think these are grape tomatoes. Yep.
Looking good.
Yeah, we started, well, this is the lettuce that we should have all harvested, but we left it in for today. And then we started some new. So we keep rotating here. Lots of onions. This person loves onions. Lots of eggplant here.
Now what is this one growing back here?
It looks like it was broccoli. I'm not sure. It looks like it was broccoli, but I don't see
something
any
in the
heads.
broccoli family.
Right, must be a, yeah. I don't see it looking like it's the little, oh gosh, Brussels sprouts. It doesn't look like that, but in that family.
Mystery broccoli family vegetable.
Right.
Cruciferous.
Cruciferous,
would be the technical term.
Right, I know this family. This is a family of 4. They have a 2-year-old and a 7-month-old, but they come out. And they all garden together. They garden together. She brings the little baby in her little pouch, and they come out and garden out here.
I think that's great to get the whole family involved and just to show kids where produce comes from. You know, I know my son this year said, "Mom, I want to grow a watermelon." And I'm like, well, that's kind of a big, sprawling plant, but okay, if that's going to get you interested in this garden, then we'll grow a watermelon. And, we have a, watermelon that's, about that big.
Did you have plant the individual sized ones?
No, they're full watermelon.
Full size?
So, they're going all over the place.
I tried the individual ones because I can trellis them, and then they hang under there, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Big one wouldn't work. This is some compost that we have left.
Okay.
We add compost every year to our beds, and we're also
your compost pile.
Having a compost pile here. So
yeah,
we put all of our debris, our plant debris, in there.
Adds a lot of good nutrients to the soil in an organic way.
Right. Yep.
So tell me, I know you have meetings.
Sure.
Tell me about your meetings that you have. Are they required for people to come, or?
They aren't, because we know people have so many different schedules. We have board meetings once a month, and then we took a survey to find out what people were interested in learning. And trellising was one. We had one on composting and the trellising, on the nutrients. What nutrients can we add to our soil in an organic way? And so we had those three early on in the season, and I don't know, we had a handful of people come, but I think it's worked.
So, yeah, that educational aspect, again, that support is really important. Are those meetings, the educational meetings, are those available to people that aren't involved in the community garden?
Yes,
that
anyone,
don't have a plot
anyone
here.
can come. We have a Facebook page and we have a website.
Okay.
And so we try and keep that up to date and post those kinds of things on there so that anyone that might run across our site and is in the area can come to those.
Well, we'll definitely post some links to the Facebook page and the
Good.
website so
Sounds
that
great.
anybody interested that's watching today can check those out. What's the best way, if somebody is interested in being a part of the community garden, what's the best way for them to contact you? Or
Well, we have also a Gmail account.
Okay.
And in the in the website and the Gmail account, there's a little form you can fill out. And then I check that regularly, and then I try and get back with a person that's said they're interested, and how do they want to get involved.
Okay.
So
Great.
we'd love to have more people involved.
Absolutely. Well, it's going really well. I'm thrilled to be in the garden that we, talked about as a vision 2 years ago. It's going great, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
Well, and
in
thank
the coming
you.
years.
I remember how it started. You were jogging by and you said, I think we have common interests.
That's right. That's right. My best visions come when I'm jogging.
So I really appreciate your help in promoting this, Andrea.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much.
Well, let's get cooking. We have a garden vegetable frittata that we're going to make today, and we're going to use a lot of ingredients that you see here in the garden.
So that's great. I'm anxious to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, now we're going to get started with our cooking portion of today's episode, and I have a really simple recipe planned for today. I have a garden vegetable frittata, and I have some specific vegetables planned for our frittata today, but you can really use a large variety of vegetables in this recipe. So my sous chefs for today, I have two special guests with me. I have Kathy Cooley and her granddaughter, Kendall Siebenaller. And we have an interesting story that we'll get to in a few minutes about these two and how they got involved with the community garden and why I chose them today to be my sous chefs. But we're gonna get started cooking real quick first. So the first thing we're gonna feature in our recipe today, do you guys know what this is?
Swiss chard.
Swiss chard, yeah. So have either of you had Swiss chard before?
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite garden vegetables because it grows really well pretty much all the time. I grow it in my garden every year, and I've never had a year that it hasn't grown well. We actually have some growing in one of the gardens back here. The other thing that I love about it is look how beautiful these stems are. Isn't that pretty? That's a beautiful color.
Kendall commented on the colors.
Yeah, and they come in all different colors. You can get the rainbow chard variety, and so there's a fuchsia and a yellow. I've seen pinks, and then you have just your basic colors here. The other thing I like about them is once they start growing, it's they have a very long growing season. I start harvesting usually in June, and I just pick the outer leaves and it keeps growing back, and I'm harvesting sometimes until November.
Oh my goodness.
So you have a steady supply of greens for months and months and months, and sometimes it's hard to figure out what to do with it. So to get started, and I'm going to give you guys a couple, and I'll let you do one if you like. I'll show you my method here. So there's a stem right here in the middle, and I like to cook that separately. So what I like to do is take my either a paring knife or a chef knife. Paring knife might be easier today, and I just kind of slice that stem away from the leaf. So we're going to cook the leaves separately. Hopefully we can, it's a little windy out here this morning. And we probably don't need a ton. I'm going to use this last little yellow one. With this recipe, you don't want to overload the vegetables in it because you want the eggs to cover them. So I'll take your stem from you real quick. And then I'm going to give those a quick chop. So you can see some get really big and some are pretty small. This one I'm going to cut in half. So I like to cook the stems with the onions. So I'm going to give those a quick chop. And a lot of people might be tempted to throw these stems away, but to me that's the prettiest part, right? We just saw how pretty and fuchsia that was. So I give those a quick chop. Let's see if that goes. And I'm gonna get the heat going here. Hopefully. All right, we have heat. We have fire. And then for a little bit of oil, so I have some sun-dried tomatoes here. And for this recipe, I like to use a little bit of the oil from the sun-dried tomatoes. I just like to pour that right on in there, because it gives it a little bit of extra flavor. And toss that in there. And I'll take this leaf from you too. And then, so the other vegetables we're adding, and we'll add those all together and start cooking those. We're gonna add a pepper, and we're not gonna use the whole thing, we're just gonna use a little bit of it. And then a little onion and some carrot. So I'll let you, if you feel comfortable, chop up a little bit of the pepper, and you can use whatever knife. And we just need about a half a cup or so, maybe even a quarter. I'm gonna peel some carrot here. And Kendall, I might have you reach around your grandma and grab me that vegetable peeler. Thank you. All right. So I'll peel the carrot. So Kendall, what's your favorite vegetable to eat?
Probably carrots.
Carrots? So you're excited to see carrots in this recipe?
Yeah.
So I've met Kendall before. I got to meet her at another cooking demonstration I did, and I made a kale smoothie. And I hear that's one of your, well, you liked it. Yeah. I don't know if you call it your favorite, but you liked it. So
Just enough pepper?
Yep, that's perfect. We can toss that in there. Yep. That out of the way. And do you like to cook, Kendall?
Yeah, I like to cook.
What's your favorite thing to cook?
Probably pancakes with her. I do a lot when I'm at her house.
So you like to cook with Grandma?
Yeah.
And Grandpa too?
He doesn't cook.
No. Grandpa's in the garden, right? Sometimes.
Mainly in his room working on stuff on his computer.
I see. I'm sure very important stuff, right?
Yeah. He does a lot of research.
There you go. And Kathy, what's your favorite vegetable?
Oh, I'm from the South and I love summer squash.
Okay.
I like to fry it with green peppers and onion and throw it on top of a salad.
And are you growing any summer squashes here?
No, I tried to grow some last year and I wasn't real successful, so.
Okay. It is a hard one. Sometimes it grows well at first and then those bugs, they just cut right through that stem and it's gone.
They require quite a bit of space too.
They do. Do a little more carrot in there and then we'll add our onion. So Kathy, what's your favorite thing to cook?
Probably lasagna.
Okay.
I have a unique lasagna recipe that calls for American cheese.
American cheese?
Yeah, American and cheddar instead of the typical ricotta cheese. And it's our Christmas tradition.
Okay, so you have lasagna for Christmas.
Yeah.
So some of my favorite lasagna recipes, I like to throw Swiss chard into. Actually, it's a really versatile vegetable. The greens kind of taste a lot like spinach, so it's very mild. But I have a pumpkin Swiss chard lasagna that I make.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's really, really good. Oh, I didn't do that yet. So we'll put just a bit of onion in there. Swiss chard, some other things that I like to do with it, just, cook it, like saute it with a little bit of olive oil, maybe some garlic. We've done a beet green recipe on Livet in the past, and I'll treat it a lot like beet greens in a recipe. So it's good cooked, it's good in soups, the frittata. Better get my onion in here before the rest of the veggies are cooked, huh? All right, so we'll just add a little bit of that. Cooking
That's
well.
smelling really good.
Even out here, there's kind of a breeze today, but you can still smell how good it smells. All right. And it looks good too. So the reason I chose some of these vegetables is because it's kind of like a rainbow color vegetable.
Yeah. I could eat just that.
Yeah. And the fun thing about this recipe, I think I said at the beginning, is there's a lot of different vegetables that would go really well in here. You can use any kind of pepper you wanted. You could put summer squash.
I was just going to say that summer squash.
Zucchini would be great. It's kind of my go-to clean out the refrigerator meal. If I have one or two, vegetables, a little bit of this, a little bit of that to use up, I'll throw it in a frittata. Or it's great for, when you're gardening, because sometimes you don't get a big bunch of things at one time. You might get one of this and a little bit of that, and you can throw it all into something like this and make it a meal. So now we're gonna add, and I might let you do this if you'd like. So we're gonna take out a couple sun-dried tomatoes, and you can use the fork if you want. And I just like sun-dried tomatoes because I feel like they add like a really good flavor. If you want to say maybe an umami flavor, it's the fifth flavor. Have you ever heard of umami?
No.
So sweet, salty, savory, bitter, and then umami would be, and it's kind of like a meaty flavor they kind of describe it as. So yeah, so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna chop that up into pieces. And again, I like the oil packed for this recipe, and to use the extra oil, again, I just, put it in the recipe for a little extra flavor. A lot of times they have, I don't think this one does, but sometimes they have like some herbs and spices added to it, like garlic and basil, oregano, to flavor the sun-dried tomatoes. So they just add a nice flavor. And you just want to cook those until, Kendall, do you want to stir? Sure. We'll let Kendall stir.
And do these go in the pan?
Yep, they can go right on in. And then we're gonna chop up some Swiss chard leaves. Do you want a white guy?
Yeah.
One of these?
Yeah,
there you go.
I got oil all over my fingers.
Yeah, they get a little oily sometimes. So then I'm gonna chop up the Swiss chard leaves, and we're gonna get those added in too. Just running my knife through it. And you want the Swiss chard leaves to be pretty small, so you don't want to get, big, bite of green. So I just used 3 leaves here, and you can see, how much of the green that is. It's quite a bit. So a little Swiss chard goes a long way. Perfect. Isn't that pretty?
Yeah.
So now we can start cracking our eggs. We're gonna crack them right into here. Kathy, if you wanna crack the eggs on in there. The nice part about being at the garden is we can throw all these scraps right into the compost pile probably, right? I would at my house, so. Set them aside for a second. So we're using 5 eggs in this recipe. You can always adjust this recipe based on how many people you're serving. This recipe serves approximately 4 people. Pretty good size serving. If, again, you want, basically the goal is to have the eggs covering the vegetables. So if they're not covering the vegetables, you could always, add in just a couple more eggs.
You want to whisk the eggs?
We'll let Kendall whisk.
Yeah, Kendall
this looks great. And you can see how much the chard kind of wilts down once it's cooked. You don't have to use chard if you can't find chard, don't have it. You can obviously sub any type of green for this recipe. Spinach would work great, kale works great. Any more like kind of hearty green would work really well in this recipe. Last year, and it was I think it was September, we were out at Matt Baker's farm for that one farmer guy, and I know he grows Swiss chard and he'll have it available usually. I don't know if he has it available now, but in the fall usually he has it available, so that's one place where you could get it if you want to try it. So I'm gonna just make sure, looks like we have enough. I might add just a tiny bit more oil since we're adding our eggs. We don't want our eggs just to, oops. Let's add some of this oil. We don't want our eggs to stick when we add them in. And then Kathy, we can just go ahead and dump that right on in and just kind of cover all the vegetables. Perfect. Now, have you made a frittata before?
Yes, I have. That's
go-to?
That's one of our things we like to fix for supper sometimes.
Yeah, it's a great supper. Or it could be a breakfast or a lunch. So it's a really versatile meal. We're gonna give it we're gonna cover it to help it cook a little bit. We don't want it too high, but we don't want it off either. So we'll keep an eye on that periodically.
We like potatoes in ours.
Potatoes,
and green pepper and onions.
Okay, yep. Another sweet potato is one of my favorites to add. Mm-hmm. But yeah, potatoes are great in there. Mushrooms would be, we've talked about some other vegetables, yeah, so lots of different vegetables you can add. Mm-hmm. Often people ask me, what is a frittata, first of all? A lot of people haven't heard of it. What's the difference between a frittata and an omelet versus scrambled eggs, or a quiche? So the way I kind of describe it is almost like a crustless quiche that you cook on the stovetop. At home, I would finish it off in the oven to cook the top of it. I let it cook, on the stove for a little bit, and then I pop it in a 350 oven to finish cooking the top of it. Today, we're going to attempt a flip of the frittata so we can finish it all on the stovetop. So we'll show you how to do that in a few minutes. An omelet, I would say the difference there, generally an omelet, you could turn this into an omelet as well if you wanted. An omelet, generally the vegetables and eggs are separate, and then you fold the vegetables in the middle of an omelet. So again, anything would really work with this. It doesn't have to be, you could, turn it into an omelet, a frittata, a quiche. You could scramble it all together and make scrambled eggs. So if frittata is not your thing, you have some different options with this recipe. So I wanted to ask you the story behind how you got involved in the community garden.
Well, actually, your show is what got me involved in the community
garden. And that's exactly
garden.
what I wanted her to say.
And we were watching your show on WB and on the TV, and you were interviewing Jenny at the demonstration garden at the park.
Right.
And she was talking about starting this garden on North William Street. And she gave the address, and I said, honey, that's just right across. We just live over on North Meyer Street, almost straight behind the garden. I said, maybe we should see about, getting into that, and it would be close. We could just run across there, and we don't have a lot of room in our backyard and the ground isn't suitable really for vegetable gardening. And so that's how we got involved.
That's great. So it got you interested in gardening for the first time. And
well, actually, we've gardened before.
Okay.
And I grew up in the South, and we always had a huge garden. We had a garden probably as big as this whole plot that my dad gardened every summer. So I was familiar with gardening, but I just hadn't done it a lot since we had gotten married.
Right.
But
well, that's great. And then, so I understand you watched Live It, and Kendall would come over to your house, and she would watch Live It too. So
yeah, she loves cooking shows. And I said, oh, we've got somebody local that does cooking shows. You're probably going to really like this. And she does. It's one of her favorite cooking shows.
So that's why we invited Kendall to be on the show today as well, because she's we'll call her one of my biggest fans. I don't know that that's true or not.
Well, you are a big fan.
So, but I love this story of how you got involved with the community garden through watching Live It, and how Kendall likes to watch Live It. So we're thrilled to have you both on the show today.
Oh, we're enjoying it.
Well, good. So we'll see how this is. It's starting to set up around the sides. I'm actually going to take a clean spatula here. And our heat's, I can hear our heat going, so it must still be on. We're just going to kind of, it's looking good actually. I think we're going to have a good flip. I'm just kind of loosening the sides a little bit. You can see it's still runny there in the middle. Now this is the point where I'd have my oven on to 350, and I'd sprinkle the cheese on, and I'd put it in my oven. But we're gonna give it just a couple more seconds here. And again, we're gonna keep our fingers crossed that I can get this baby flipped. So you can see, it's still not set on the top, but that's okay, because it's mostly cooked, and I can kind of wiggle my spatula underneath, and I can tell we're gonna have a really good flip here. So it's all loose underneath. And I'm gonna take a plate here. Let's see, the best way to do this. All right, so we're just gonna go for this method. There we go.
Beautiful.
So yeah, definitely flipping it is a little bit more tricky. If you have an oven, I'd recommend just putting it on in your oven to finish it off. All right, so Kendall, I'm gonna let you do the honors here. I'm gonna let you sprinkle the cheese all over the top of this. You can hold this. Uh-oh.
So like,
Yep, just sprinkle it all over. As much as you want, really.
The whole
You can use
thing.
all of it if you want. We didn't put a lot of salt. We didn't really put any salt in here, so the Parmesan cheese will give it a nice salty flavor. So
You can never have too much cheese.
yeah, so you can just add the whole thing. Yeah, just make sure it's all covered. And it'll kind of melt there. You can use any kind of cheese on here that you want. I just like Parmesan for this recipe. But what other?
Asiago would probably be good.
Asiago, yeah. You could do like a feta, even like some feta crumbles on top. Even just a mozzarella or a cheddar would be fine. So, or you could skip the cheese if you don't want it. Load it up, load it up. Just dump it on, just dump it.
There you go.
Beautiful. You can see it's starting to, kind of melt on the sides there. I'm gonna cover it. You good? Do you want another? I have another one over here. You can have your very own
that was
Purell
drying
wipe.
out.
thank you.
And I'm gonna cover this just a tad just to help melt the cheese.
Ooh, that smells good. That cheese.
Yeah, and it'll just take a second. And the bottom will be cooked. And then the top will have the nice, beautiful cheese all, you know, melted, and the vegetables underneath. So, so to serve this, I usually cut it in quarters. It's a good, you know, nice serving there. And then I like to serve it with, you know, to me, I can't have eggs without like a good piece of whole grain toast. So I like a good piece of whole grain toast with this, and then like a fruit salad to kind of balance out the meal. That's how I would serve it. And again, this is great for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. If you make it for dinner, you know, have the leftovers for breakfast. So
It would be good with a fresh tomato sliced on top of it.
there you go. Yeah. So, and obviously, you know, 'tis the season for tomato slices. So it's actually the only way I like tomatoes, first, you know, off the vine. So yeah, that would be very good too. Let's see how this looks. Perfect. That looks great. What do you think, guys?
And it smells
I
good.
was just about
Smells
to say,
good,
it smells good.
looks good. Good enough to eat, right?
Yep.
So we'll turn off our heat and we'll get to sample it today, huh?
I hope so.
Well, thank you so much, Kathy and Kendall, for joining me today.
Thank
It was
you
a
for having
pleasure
us.
having you. And thank you at home for joining us for Live It Chard at the Community Gardens.